There's actually a lot in this One Piece chapter that you may not be fully aware of, so I'm going to break it down step by step, piece by piece, so hopefully you guys get the full scope of what's going on with this latest chapter. And if you don't know, of course, obviously, the One Piece chapter reviews, official reviews, are back in full force. Of course, we have the live stream reaction on Friday to the scans on both Requiem and Twitch. Links in the box below. Numero uno. Numero dos is that we have a first take video the day after on Saturday for the scan chapters. Check it out as well. And finally, listen, the setting it's a bit cluttered. It's a bit wonky. I'm doing some renovations. So for the time being, I'm still using the web camera. For some reason, it doesn't like red. I have no idea why. No idea, okay? So I'm working on it, and in the very near future, things all flow smoothly, like a babbling brook on a Sunday morning, just smooth, a hot knife through butter. But before we continue on the video, a brief word from today's sponsor. This video is brought to you by Surfshark VPN. Imagine you're out there in the universe. Okay, well in this case, I guess closer to home. Imagine you're around town, you're just chilling, you're just vibing, and then you gain access to a public Wi-Fi. If you do so with no protection, that's no good.
That's no good.
Because you're giving someone, a nefarious person, a bad actor, a chance to gain access to your own private information and details. That is absolutely no good. So you can easily use an awesome VPN like Surfshark VPN to protect your online privacy, whether it is your phone, your laptop, your iPad, your Surface, a desktop, whether it is Windows, Linux, Android, iOS, it doesn't matter what you have. Surfshark VPN will protect you on all devices and can easily do so no matter where you are in the world, considering how many servers Surfshark VPN has across the world. It has amazing online privacy protection features that make sure that no bad actors can gain access to your information. Any phishing attempts, any malware can't ruin your day. On top of all this, Surfshark VPN is way more affordable than its competitors easily. And if you don't know, your boy does have some region gated content. But in a general sense, if you want to gain access to any region-gated content, whether it's on YouTube, Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, you name it, you can easily change your location using Surfshark VPN, and boom, just like that, the region-gated content that you couldn't access before, you can easily do so now. Go in the description box down below and get your purchase of Surfshark VPN using code KOL, that is KOL, to get 83% off and 3 months free. So once again, I want to give big ups to Surfshark VPN for being awesome. And now let's get to the video at hand. Good. Now, let's get into this chapter and break it down from the main points here of pacing, character, and story. So we get a full scope here of what's going on for this chapter. So numero uno, let's talk about the pace of this chapter 1041. In this chapter, there are 10 individual parts for this chapter. That is an absurd amount, even for One Piece. That is a lot of parts for a chapter. Number 1 is Momonosuke, Yamato, and Zunisha. Number 2 is Raizo and Jinbei. Number 3 is Orochi and Hiri. Number 4 is Izo versus CP0. Number 5 is Usopp with Hamlet plus Kiku and Kinemon. Number 6 is Carrot, Wanda, Neko. Number 7 is Frankie with Zoro. Number 8 is Nami, Zeus, Marco, Tama. Number 9 is Kid in Law. Number 10 is Luffy versus Kaido plus a flashback. It is just a jarring amount of content pace-wise for one chapter. And honestly, to be real with you, it's pretty easy to forget a lot of these smaller moments and smaller parts of the chapter. All of these parts are there to, of course, have all the characters do something while Luffy fights against Kaido. But again, because there's so many parts, a lot of them are very forgettable. It is what it is. So that's the first thing, pacing. Overall, jarring, all over the place, kind of crazy. Number 2 is character. And character, we have a lot more substance here. So number 1, Momo is not his father. Momo, in this chapter, does not want to hurt the folks of Wano Country, thereby keeping the borders of Wano Country closed. This shows you a level of cowardice that Oden never had. Never had that. But it's fine. It's A-okay. A reminder, Oden was born a genetic freak that required Xavier's and the X-Men attention, whereas Momonosuke was born a regular kid from the jump. So Momo having these doubts, these moments of cowardice, are actually pretty good for his character, I'd argue. And then also, his mindset is actually very similar to the ancient Kozuki clan members of yore. Recall what Oden said in chapter 972, that the Kozuki clan were the ones to cut off Wano country to protect Wano country from a great external power. So even though I do theorize that it's just more than the Kozuki clan, the fact remains that Momo's mindset is in lockstep with those ancient clan members that wanted to protect the citizens of Wano country from external powers and then some. If opening the borders of Wano country leads to harming the citizens of Wano country, then I'd rather keep the borders closed. That is some good character stuff from Momonosuke. It is. Now, number 2 is Hiri. Every time Hiri played the Moon Princess song, she wore that mask to hide her sadness. This also means that she couldn't put a smile on her face, Joker style, in chapter 932, when we first see her play the song for the first time in the arc, which also happens to be at nighttime as well. Now, number 3 is Izo. Izo has the skills to take on 2 members of CP0 and take out one of them in the process. That is the Whitebeard Pirate Commander showing off in very subtle ways, but also very impressive ways, undeniably. Now, the next thing here, we know the name, finally, we know one of the names of the CP0 agents that we've seen time and time again, and this one is called Maha. What I try to find out too is whether or not that name belonged to any of the kids in Lamp's house, where Big Mom was when she was a kid back in Elbaf, Mother Caramel's place. But a lot of their names are actually unknown. Therefore, we don't know if he's actually one of those kids. So that theory of the CP0 guys being former members of the Lamb's house is still pending. And then we have Kaido showing off a rare moment of observation hockey, where he can't sense Big Mom anymore, because Big Mom is not off island, she's gone. And then, through a flashback from Kaido, we have Big Mom character stuff as well, where it's revealed that Big Mom didn't trust Rocks back in the day. So this is actually pretty important, because it does show us just how dysfunctional that crew was, always fighting and killing each other, and it does hint that Rocks didn't fight with or side by side Big Mom, at least her, when Roger and Garp pulled on up. So there's actually a lot of hints that when Rocks fought against Roger and Garp, Whitebeard, Big Mom, and Kaido didn't get involved in that fight. The fact that Big Mom, from the jump, didn't trust Rocks, that does bolster that idea. Finally, for character, Monkey D. Luffy. Luffy unveils a new Gear 4 Snake Man move called Hydra. Hail Hydra. And this attack is Conqueror's Haki coding with 9 simultaneous instant punches. A Hydra. And it also seems that moving forward, when it comes to the Conqueror's Haki coding Gear 4 based attacks, Luffy will give them more mythical creature names. Moving forward, probably. Note to this. The Conqueror's Haki Gear 4 attack that we saw him do in chapter 1025, when him and Yamato combo, was just the Jet Culverin. So it wasn't a mythical named attack. But moving forward, any new attacks may have mythical names to them in order to differentiate the attacks from non-Conqueror Haki infused attacks. Just how his Gear 3 is his giant pistol, but his Armor Haki hardened Gear 3 is his elephant gun. The elephant name distinguishes between the giant non-Haki one and the Haki one. And then finally, the last part of this chapter is story. What does this chapter do for story? Number 1, cover story. Pudding actually hits Niji and Yonji with the punch. So she's doing something at least, which is pretty good. And her fist does do damage to the to the exoskeletons of the German boys. That's a feat. That is a feat for Charlotte Pudding. But what's also kind of interesting too, when she gives those two her Falcon Punch, the face that those two have is actually the same face that Pudding herself made in chapter 851 when she was dunking on Sanji. It's that same big-cheeked, duck-lipped face. So, does that mean something? Probably not. It's one of Oda's gag faces that he makes, like the NL face. I just found it intriguing that Oda gave those two that face when she's punching them. So if you didn't know, now you know. Number 2 for story is a big boy. Momonosuke, Zunisha, and Odin's journal. So Yamato notes to Momo being the one who will guide the world into the dawn. And Zunisha, we know now, was Joy Boy's companion long ago, sliding that samurai jack long ago in a distant land.
Long ago in a distant land.
This reinforces the idea that Momonosuke is Joy Boy, or at least a sovereign, at least. And one of those important things here is actually a translation difference between the scans and the official Viz Media chapter. Momo says in the official chapter, I spoke with Zunisha once before, but only for a moment. That once before is actually very important because the only time we've ever seen Momo talk to Zunisha was when he commanded Zunisha to fight against Jack the Drought back on Zou. When you read the scans though, you actually get several interpretations of what Momonosuke is talking about, rather than just the one time. So for example, is he talking about him talking to Zunisha off screen during the Law versus Big Mom fight featuring Kid, of course? Or is Momo talking about at the end of Zou when he tried to talk to Zunisha off panel? The official makes it very clear that Momonosuke has only spoken to Zunisha one time, and that one time, once before, was in Zou. This means that Zunisha wasn't ordered, probably at least, wasn't ordered by Momonosuke to arrive to Wano country before he left Zou to go to Wano. So based on the Viz Media translation, that is the idea that you get even more distinctly compared to, let's say, the scans. Absolutely. Because now it makes it a lot more mysterious as to why Zunisha is actually here. Now, to be fair, Zunisha does say, I'm here to actually help you out and assist you. However, I think a lot of us assume, rightfully so, easily assume, that Zunisha is here for just more to be Assist Man of the Year. Tag him in like it's wrestling. No. It's here for a far more grandiose reason. And this probably does tie to opening the borders of Wano, which Momonosuke mentions during his conversation with Yamato. And that's in lockstep with Zunisha arriving and Momonosuke understanding that Momonosuke cannot die just yet. He's too important to die. And also, remember that opening the borders of Wano is somehow in conjunction with Joy Boy, since Oden, in chapter 172, noted that this country, Wano, must prepare to welcome and work with this figure that will appear in the world again after 800 years. That is a very specific deadline. And it just so happens that Zunisha is here at this very specific deadline, listening to Momonosuke speak, knowing that Zunisha, again, was an old companion of Joy Boy. And it's probably also part of the reason why Oden, or Roger, removed the most important page from Odin's journal. That's right. And I say Roger because think about what happened in One Piece Stampede, where they made an eternal log post of Laugh Tale, but Roger took it through into the water. Like, hell no. The same concept could apply here. And also, it's probably in lockstep with what Rayleigh told Robin back in Shibuya Archipelago, that Roger and the country of Ohara were probably too impatient, and only by seeing the world and taking things step by step, perhaps even reaching a different conclusion than the Roger Pirates and Ohara did once they learned the truth. So we remove any of the major reveals because the next person that arrives to the truth may have a different conclusion than O'Hara and the Roger Pirates, thereby being the right people and the right generation to have the final war and get this whole thing done. So that is the biggest component for story in this chapter. Smack dab at the beginning of the chapter with Momonosuke, Yamato, and Oden's journal. Now, the next thing here. Jinbei gonna save Raizo, but Raizo says something interesting. He says the preparations are already complete. What does that mean? It might involve the other scabbards that we haven't seen for a very long time now. 1, Denjiro, and 2, Kawamatsu. Because we've seen how in this arc, Oda has shown us time and time again the other characters in this arc doing something as Luffy and Kaido are fighting. So we haven't seen those boys do anything for a very long time, and these preparations could have been them actually doing something the entire time, but it was all done off screen. Now the next thing here is Hiri is in position to kill Orochi. This is the very thing that her and Zoro talked about after he had saved her in chapter 950, where she wanted to take down Orochi and now she's in prime position. And also in the process, I did like seeing the return of the Sea Stone stuff, because it was one of the things that I thought was going to be very important in this arc. Ever since Hawkins mentioned that Sea Stone originated in Wano Country during his fight against Law, but it hasn't come back at all until now. So I think it's a very good thing that we see it come back now in this arc, especially with Hiri knowing how weak she is physically compared to Orochi, but now she has the perfect position to take him down. And just how in chapter 932, when we see her play the shamisen for the first time, and then the next chapter, Hiri was allegedly killed by Denjiro, Kyosho at the time, then the case here could be we see her play the shamisen in this chapter, and then the next chapter is when we see her strike to try and kill, or actually kill, genuinely Orochi. There could be that parallel there from those two chapters, and then this chapter, and then the next chapter. Potentially, of course.
Of course.
Now, the next thing here is that Izo takes out a CP0 agent once again. Now, in the process, there are death flags. There are death flags everywhere in this arc when it involves the Scabbards. Like, it's a goddamn parade of death flags. But we'll see if anything really happens when it comes to these deaths of the Scabbards in Wano Country, because ever since Usopp's Ikitai I Want to Live speech to the Scabbards, Kiku and Kinemon, and saying how he holds on to life with snot running down his nose and so on and so forth, and then Ink came easily to save him from that situation, there's a good chance that... God damn it. There's a very good chance that no Scabbard dies, which would be catastrophic. However, Izo has some death flags, which makes me happy. And he was Studley in the process too. Even though it's all off screen, still Studley. I can only hope that we actually do see some tombstones come the end of it all. Now the next thing here, Drake. Drake is back up. Not completely killed, clearly, by CP0. And thing is this, it is hard to gauge Drake's stamina and endurance from this alone, since we didn't see any of the fight between him and CP0, obviously. But sword versus shield is somewhat of a destined fight within the Marine/world government. The next thing for story, Gorosei. Zagorosei, that's right. The Gorosei called in with another major order. Kill Straw Hat Luffy. That's massive. Huge. Because the last time we saw the Gorosei talk was in chapter 1037. And they were talking about a particular devil fruit. A devil fruit that had its name hidden by the world government long ago in a distant land, of course.
Unspeakable evil.
And how the fruit hasn't awakened in centuries. And now they're saying eliminate Luffy, when the order before was capture Robin. Understand the magnitude of that. The order before was capture Robin. The order now is eliminate Straw Hat Luffy. This means that taking out Straw Hat Luffy is just as important as capturing Robin, which potentially is a massive sign that Luffy's devil fruit is what the elders are talking about. And Luffy's awakening is soon, potentially soon to come. And the thing is, whatever Luffy's awakening is, the scale of impact, think about it. Robin can literally change the world scope if she attains that knowledge and can successfully spread that knowledge to the world believes her, and then people uprise against our government. Something comparable to that in terms of global impact would be an ancient weapon, I would argue, where an ancient weapon would absolutely shift the paradigm of power in the world of One Piece. Luffy's devil fruit potentially is being treated in the same vein as that. So the reason why I can't say it's like definitively a massive moment is because it's all potentially, allegedly. Whether we see in the near future, if it's actually the case here, and it looks like it's gonna be in the near future. That's what it seems to be. Next thing here, Zoro died, but Frankie has his corpse, which is nice. Though I will say this, Zoro being in this condition, either near death or actually dead, does actually bolster Hawkins and his prophecies. It does. Because he did say, in front of Zoro and Luffy, a 19% chance of survival. So Zoro's condition now could be telling of what's to come for Luffy's condition in the near future. The next thing here, Hihimaru, the monkey, and Komachio are healed by Marco. Who really cares? Next thing here is that Law clearly lies about having no stamina. That's a given.
Not the cap.
Fine for story. Luffy goes into his final Gear 4, which is Snake Man, so it does put a little bit of a damper, I should say, on the idea of a new transformation for the time being, because final Gear 4, Snake Man. But to be fair, he has it very vague, where it's a final Gear 4. So this could allude to the idea that Luffy may be able to transform into his Gear 4 states while still in Gear 4, meaning no need to power down. So in theory, he could go from Snake Man to Bound Man, and there's no need to power down. Furthermore, I will say one last thing for story. I think that Kaido has a true final form / techniques like Queen and King before him. And I think Luffy is going to pull out something crazy or awaken something crazy, awakening, to actually have the power to defeat Kaido in one last crazy hurrah, just like Sanji and Zoro before him. So the overall rating for this chapter is going to be a 6.5 out of 10. That's right, a 6.5 out of 10. The main reason why is because the pacing is way too much. It is just amazing how much Oda can fit into one chapter. And where it does have a lot for the actual story, because there's so many things in one chapter, as a result, a lot of the smaller, less focused moments tend to be quite forgettable and not have that much weight at all until they're actually executed later on to the story. But then you kind of forget, well, hold on, how this happened in the first place. Oh yeah, there's like a small panel, like a small 3 panels of this character saying this thing. What? The pacing is good for the story progression, but in other aspects, it kind of fails in terms of structure. So the pacing is the main issue I have. There's 10 parts plus a flashback. That's nuts. One Piece tends to do better when there's like 3 parts or 2 parts or 4 parts. 8 parts and above, I'm not a fan of it. I'm really not. So pacing is way too much. Character is decent, and Momo continues to be the second best written character in the arc behind Sanji. And again, story, there's a lot, of course, but most of it is low-key. It's not necessarily confirmed, but it's still low-key a lot when it comes to story for major things. So once again, a 6.5, an okay plus chapter of One Piece.